The war had been long, cruel, and full of pain. Both sides had lost too much. The alien warrior named Zelari had fought for years against the humans. She had been trained to see them as cold and ruthless. They had taken many of her people, burned her cities, and pushed her world to the edge. She never imagined falling into their hands alive. And yet here she was wounded, bleeding, chained inside a human ship. Her last memory before blacking out had been the explosion that shook her vessel. Her escape pod had failed, and fire had swallowed everything. Then came darkness. When she woke up, she was not dead. That confused her. Death would have been simple. Instead, she was lying in a clean room with smooth metal walls and soft lights. A bandage covered her side. Someone had treated her wounds. She tensed up the moment she saw the figure in the doorway. A human male stood there. Tall, dressed in gray uniform pants and a loose shirt. He looked young, not much older than her own little brother had been before. The war took him. His face was calm, unreadable. In his hands he held a tray of food. "You're awake," he said quietly. Exlarai narrowed her glowing eyes. She expected harsh words, threats, maybe a stun rod or worse. But none came. Instead, he walked slowly into the room and placed the tray on a nearby table. "Eat," he said. "You'll need strength to recover." She didn't reply. Her pride wouldn't let her speak to a human. He didn't seem offended. He gave her a slight nod and walked out. For 2 days he came and went. Always quiet, always calm. He brought food, cleaned the room, and replaced the healing patches on her side. Zelari didn't touch the food at first. She expected poison or drugs, but when her stomach began to burn from hunger, she finally took a small bite. The taste was strange. Human food was nothing like the spicy, rich meals of her homeworld, but it didn't kill her. The human didn't smile or cheer. He just said, "I'll bring more later," and left again. On the 3rd day, she tried to stand. Pain shot through her leg. She collapsed, gritting her teeth. Gosh. The human appeared in the doorway at that moment and rushed forward. Instinct made her snarl and push him away, but he didn't raise a hand. He helped her sit back on the bed. "You'll heal faster if you don't tear the wound open again," he said. "Why are you helping me?" Zelari hissed, her voice full of hate and confusion. "I'm your enemy." He looked at her for a long time before answering. "War doesn't stop someone from being a person." Those words stayed in her head long after he left ELAR. I had grown up believing humans were monsters. Her training told her they were machines and flesh-cold, cruel and clever. But this one, he didn't act like any human she'd imagined. He didn't torture, shout, or mock her. He brought her books in both languages, even repaired her broken shoulder armor, and placed it quietly on the shelf across her bed. Every day she watched him more closely. His name was Daniel, she heard. Others call him that through the wall. He wasn't a commander or a doctor, he was just a low-ranked soldier. Maybe that was why they had assigned him to a prisoner. Yet he treated her with more care than her own officers ever had. One evening, after a long silence, she spoke. "You are strange for a human," she said. Keeping her tone sharp, he looked up from the small device in his hand and gave a short shrugged. "You're strange for an alien. You didn't kill me when you had the chance." She remembered that moment. When she had woken in pain and he came close with his medkit, she had a sharp piece of metal in her hand. She could have stabbed. Him, she hadn't. Something had stopped her. Maybe it was the way he moved slowly, like someone who had no wish to cause harm. They didn't talk again that night, but something had shifted between them. Not trust. Not yet. Curiosity. One night Zelare heard strange noises coming from the hallway. At first she thought it was a fight, but no, it was crying. Soft, painful sobs. She stood carefully and limped to the door. It wasn't locked. They didn't fear her anymore. She opened it slightly and saw Daniel sitting alone in the hallway, head in his hands. He was crying. She froze. She had never seen a human cry. His shoulders shook and she heard him whisper a name. "Jacob, sorry." She didn't understand everything, but she knew that name must mean something to him. Maybe someone he had lost. She didn't say anything, didn't walk out or offer comfort. But the next day, when he came into the room, she had already prepared. Her bed enfolded the extra blanket neatly. She had also left a small crystal flower from her armor near the edge of his table. It was a small token on her world. It meant shared silence. He noticed it but said nothing, and she was glad. Something unspoken had begun between them. She didn't understand it yet, didn't trust it, but it was there. For the first time in her life, Zalari began to wonder if peace was something that could grow not from leaders and treaties, but from quiet hands, soft voices, and simple kindness. The days passed slowly inside the human outpost, but something had changed between Zalari and Daniel. Though they spoke very little, there was a quiet understanding. She was still a prisoner, but he no longer treated her like one. And slowly, she stopped acting like one. Each morning, Daniel brought her a new tray of food. Sometimes it had fresh fruit, other times something warm and salty. He never asked if she liked it, but she noticed that if she finished something fully, he brought it again the next day. It started learning what she preferred without asking. One morning, he placed a small folded cloth on the table along with her meal. "What is this?" she asked, touching it carefully. "A scarf," Daniel said. "It gets cold here during night watch. I thought you might want it." Zalari stared at him. A scarf was not armor. It offered no protection. But it was soft, woven from human threads, and smelled of clean air. It reminded her of the shawls her sister once wore before the war. She didn't thank him, but she draped it over her shoulders that night. When he saw it the next morning, he said nothing. But a small smile touched his lips. Each day, Daniel stayed a little longer. Sometimes he read from a small datapad. Sometimes he talked about things that made no sense to her: sports, music, old Earth films. Zalari didn't understand most of it, but she listened. His voice was calm, and his stories were simple. "You ever seen a snowstorm?" he asked one evening. "My world has lava rain," she answered. "But I have read about snow. It melts." "Cold," he said. "Quiet, too. Peaceful." She looked at him closely. "How can falling ice be peaceful?" He laughed softly. "You'll know it if you ever see it." She thought about that for a long time. "Exile." I began to notice small things. About Daniel. He walked with a slight limp, probably from an old injury. He sometimes rubbed his shoulder like it hurt. And at night, when he thought no one watched, he stood outside and stared up at the stars. His eyes looked distant, full of memory. She wondered what he saw up there. One night she found herself standing beside him at the observation deck. It was not locked, and no one stopped her anymore. "Do you watch the stars for someone?" she asked. Daniel turned to her. "For my brother, he loved astronomy. Always talked about visiting other worlds. But the war took him before he could." Zalari lowered her eyes. "I lost someone too. My sister. She believed in healing, not fighting. She joined the medical wing. She never returned." They both stood in silence. As two enemies, once ready to kill, now sharing stories of loss. War takes too much, Daniel said quietly. "Yes," Zalari agreed. "It does." After that night, something grew stronger between them. It wasn't friendship. Not yet. But it was no longer just survival either. It was respect. It was something human and alien both understood: pain, grief, and the wish for something better. The next day, Daniel brought her a small learning device. "You can use this to access human history files. I thought you might want to understand more about us." She raised an eyebrow. "You want me to know your weaknesses?" Gave a half smile. "No. I want you to know we're not just soldiers." Zalari took the device. She began reading every night. Stories of ancient Earth wars, peace treaties, inventions, music, and strange human customs. She read about their oceans, their birds, and how they once feared the stars. The more she read, the more confused she felt. Humans were nothing like what her leaders had said. One evening, she placed the device back on the table. "Your people are strange." So are yours, Daniel said with a grin. You love fiercely, she said, thinking out loud. But you also destroy quickly, he nodded. We make mistakes. Some of us try to learn from them. She looked at him. Are you one of them? I hope so, he said. The days turned into weeks. The outpost was quiet and no orders. Came about what to do with Zalari. Her wounds had healed. The guards stopped watching her closely. Everyone treated her like a guest who hadn't decided whether to stay or leave. One afternoon, a group of children visited the outpost with their families, some of the local settlers. They brought food, supplies, and laughter. One child, a little girl with bright eyes, ran past Zalari and bumped into her. Sorry, the girl said, then looked up and froze. You're not human. Zalari knelt and smiled gently. No, I'm not. The child hesitated, then reached out and touched her arm. Your skin is warm like Dad's coffee cup. Daniel, standing nearby, laughed. That's the highest compliment you'll get from her. Zalari looked down at the girl and said, Thank you. After the visitors left, Zalari sat in her room for a long time. The child had not feared her. That small hand on her arm had felt like light. No judgment, no hate, just curiosity. That night, Zalari found Daniel outside again. My people wouldn't understand this, she said. They'd say I've gone soft. Maybe they're wrong, Daniel said. Maybe strength is knowing when not to fight. She nodded slowly. Maybe. She stared up at the stars again. They didn't look so cold anymore inside her. Something had begun to change. She had once been full of fire, anger, and duty. Now she was filled with questions, thoughts, and strange warmth. What had he done to her? No, she corrected herself. What had they done to each other? The wind outside the outpost had changed. Even though the planet had no real seasons, there was a shift in the air. The sun burned a little softer, and the long days felt slower. But inside the walls, something much bigger was changing. Inside Zalari. She didn't tell Daniel how often she read the human books now. She stayed up late going through old poems, space records, and short stories written by people who lived hundreds of years ago. Their world was different from hers, full of mountains, oceans, and cities that lit the night sky. But the feelings in their words were the same. Hope, fear, loneliness, love. One night, she asked Daniel, What's the meaning of that word? Love. He was surprised. You read that somewhere? Many times, she said. Your people write about it more than any other word. Daniel smiled gently. It means many things. Sometimes it means family, sometimes friendship, sometimes more. It's when you care about someone deeply, when their pain feels like your own. Zalari was quiet. She had known duty, loyalty, even respect. But not that. Not something that could move past war and memory. Later that evening, Daniel brought a small box to her room. I thought you'd like this, he said. Inside was a soft cloth wrapped around a music device. It was old, scratched on the edges. You just press this, Daniel showed her. It plays music from Earth. Peaceful stuff. Zalari turned it on. Soft piano sounds filled the room, slow and smooth. No weapons, no orders, just quiet notes. Humans create strange things, she whispered. Sometimes the only way to heal is through sound, he replied. After that, she kept the music near her bed. Then something unexpected happened. A private signal came through the outpost's communication system, coded in her people's language. Zalari froze when she heard it. Her old commander's voice echoed from the speaker. To the captured warrior Zalari, this is command. Your location has been confirmed. Rescue mission in 3 cycles. Prepare the escape path from inside. Glory to the stars. The message ended. She stared at the screen for a long time. It was what she had once prayed for. A rescue. A return home, now she felt. Unsure, her fingers trembled. Not from fear, but from confusion. She didn't tell Daniel. That night, she went to the edge of the outpost, where the tall hill met the sky. She stood there alone, thinking, if she helped her people, the humans at this base would likely die. They didn't know an attack was coming. If she did nothing, she'd be seen as a traitor by her kind. Either way, blood would be spilled. Daniel found her standing there. "Everything all right?" he asked. She turned slowly. "Do you ever feel torn between two homes?" He nodded. "My parents were from different countries back on Earth. During one war, one side called them heroes. The other called them traitors." "What did they do?" she asked. "They chose peace, and they suffered for it. But they never regretted it." Zellery looked down at the small music device in her hand. "What would you do?" she said softly. "If helping your people meant killing the ones who showed you kindness?" Daniel took a deep breath. "I think you already know the answer. You just don't want it to be true." Zellery didn't sleep that night. The next day, she wandered through the outpost. The humans greeted her with nods. Some smiled. No one saw her as a threat anymore. They offered her tea, showed her how to repair simple machines, even asked her about her world. A child gave her a drawing, a picture of a human, an alien, and a planet with two suns. "It's called peace," the child said. XELAR. I held that drawing for a long time. She finally returned to her room and stared at the communicator. Her people were coming, 3 cycles. She had 2 options. Open the gate and let them in or warn the humans. She made her decision the next morning as she stepped toward the control room to send a quiet message to Daniel. Her heart was racing, but before she could reach the door, the alarm suddenly blared across the base. The attack had started early. Red lights flashed. Voices shouted orders. Explosions shook the ground. Daniel ran past her with other soldiers, gear in hand. "They're here," he shouted. Zellery's breath caught. "I didn't call them early. I swear." Daniel paused, met her eyes. "Then help us." No more words were needed. She grabbed armor from the supply room light gear. Nothing that would make her stand out, and ran beside Daniel toward the outer walls. Ships appeared in the skies, sleek and fast, weapons glowing. Her people were serious. They didn't want rescue. They wanted to destroy the outpost. She climbed up the wall with Daniel, her heart pounding. One of her old commanders landed nearby with a strike team. He saw her. "Zellery," he shouted in their native tongue. "You are free. Open the inner gate." She stepped forward. Daniel looked at her. His weapon was ready. Soldiers nearby stared. XELAR. I stood between 2 sides. Then slowly, she lifted her hand and fired at her own commander's weapon. It sparked and exploded. The alien soldiers scattered in surprise. "I choose peace," she said in her native language. "I will not help you kill these people," the commander snarled. "You are one of them now?" "No," she said. "I am better than what we were." The fight broke out fully. Energy blasts flew across the ground. Smoke filled the air. Zellery and Daniel stood back to back, protecting each other. When the dust settled, the alien strike team retreated. The humans held the base. Barely Alar stood in the rubble, bruised and tired. Daniel was beside her, covered in dust. He looked at her, breathing hard. "You didn't have to stay," she answered softly, "but I did." And for the first time, she felt truly free. The air was thick with smoke and silence. The battle had ended, but the damage was everywhere. Part of the outpost's eastern wall was broken. Wires sparked from broken towers. The medical center was full of injured soldiers and a quiet sadness. Filled the halls. Zellery sat beside one of the beds, helping a young soldier hold still while a nurse bandaged his arm. He winced in pain but didn't flinch away from her touch. No one had called her a traitor. No one had blamed her. In fact, many had thanked her. Daniel walked into the room carrying a tray of water bottles. He handed one to each patient, then stopped near her. "How are you holding up?" he asked. "Better than I expected," she said. "Quietly, you saved lives," he said, "including mine." She didn't respond right away. Her eyes were on the boy in the bed, no older than her cousin who once dreamed of flying ships. "I saw one of my old friends among the attackers," she said softly. "We trained together. We built models of ships when we were kids. Today he tried to kill me." Daniel lowered his voice. "I'm sorry." "It's not your fault," she said, "but it still hurts." They stood in silence for a while. Then she turned to him. "Thank you." He looked surprised. "For what?" "For seeing more in me than just an enemy," gave her a small smile. I think we both saw more in each other. Later that evening, the outpost commander called a meeting in the main hall. The walls were cracked, the floor dusty, but the room was full. Humans of every rank stood together. Some leaned on crutches. Others sat on crates or blankets. XELAR. I stood near the back. The commander, an older woman with silver streaks in her hair, raised her voice. We survived something we weren't prepared for. We did it together. We must face the truth. This wasn't a rescue mission. This was an attack, and it will not be the last. Murmurs spread through the crowd. We need help, the commander continued. Reinforcements, supplies, and allies. I've already sent the request, but until help arrives, we must stay strong. Her eyes scanned the room, then stopped on Zalari. And we must learn to trust those who stand with us, no matter where they come from. Some heads turned toward Zalari. She didn't flinch. The meeting ended. People returned to work, repairing what they could. Soldiers stood beside engineers, and medics stitched wounds while listening to soft human songs. And Zalari helped wherever she was needed. She worked with Daniel in the power room the next day, fixing a broken fuse. As they finished, he sat down, on the floor, wiping sweat from his forehead. When this is all over, he said, "What will you do?" She looked at the tools in her hand. I don't know. I was raised for war. I never thought about after. Maybe it's time to think. About it. What about you? She asked. I used to want to be a teacher, he said. Before the war, what stopped you? He shrugged. The war began. I didn't want others to fight alone. She nodded. You would have been a good teacher, he smiled. Maybe I still can be. A few days passed. The sky was clear. Again, the outpost was stronger now, patched with metal and hope. Zalari stood outside at night watching the stars. She no longer felt like a prisoner or even a soldier. She felt like something in between. Daniel joined her with 2 mugs of warm drink. What's this? She asked, taking the cup. Hot cocoa, he said. Human comfort drink. She sipped carefully. The sweetness surprised her. It's good, she said. They sat side by side on the bench, their shoulders almost touching. It's the silence between them was warm. My people will think I'm a traitor forever, she said. Even if I never return. Maybe, Daniel said. But maybe one day someone will hear your story and understand. Do you believe that? I have too. She turned to him. Do you believe in second chances? He nodded. Yes. Especially for those brave enough to change. Her eyes stayed on his face for a long time. I've changed, she said. But I don't know what I'm becoming. Someone better, he said softly. Her chest felt tight, but not with fear. It was something else. Something she didn't have a name for. She stood. I need to walk. He didn't stop her, just nodded. She walked the path around the outpost, her mind full. Everything felt heavy, her past, her choices, her future. But inside that weight was something new, peace. As she turned the corner, she saw a small gathering near the fence. Children were sitting on the ground, and a human woman was showing them how to plant seeds. Zalari stepped closer. The woman smiled at her. Would you like to help? Zalari knelt beside the children. The soil was dry, but the seeds were small and full of life. A child handed her one. You put it here, like this. Zalari followed the child's instructions, covering the seed gently. Now we wait, the woman said. Okay. And soon something green will grow. Zalari stared at the soil, so small, so quiet. And yet inside that darkness, something living was already beginning. The days passed. Zalari found herself becoming part of the outpost life. She helped with small tasks, carrying supplies, assisting with repairs, and even calming scared children when the wind howled at night. No one ordered her to do these things. She simply chose to. It felt natural now. Daniel often worked beside her. They didn't always talk, but when they did, the words came easily. Not like prisoner and guard. It's not like alien and human. Just 2 people learning to live in a quiet space after a loud war. One evening, while helping organize the storage room, Daniel found a dusty projector box. "This still works," he said, brushing off the top. "What is it?" Zalari asked. "Movie projector. Humans used to gather and watch stories this way."
Oh.
Later that night, he set it up in the main hall. Word spread quickly, and by nightfall, soldiers, settlers, and even children were sitting on blankets and crates waiting. Zalari sat near the back, unsure at first. Daniel waved her closer. "You'll like this one," he said. "It's about a robot who learns what it means to care." Zalari sat beside him. The lights dimmed. The film started. And for the first time, she watched a human story unfold on screen. It was strange, funny, and deeply moving. The robot, once cold and alone, found meaning through connection. XELAR. I didn't cry. But something inside her softened when it ended. No one spoke. Then, slowly, people clapped. Zalari found herself clapping too. After everyone left, she remained in the hall, staring at the blank screen. "Thank you," she said. Daniel looked at her. "For what?" "For showing me your world. Not just your ships or weapons, but your hearts." He looked down, then met her eyes again. "You've shown us a lot too." The next morning, the communication tower came to life. A signal reached the outpost. Earth Command had finally responded. Backup was coming. Reinforcements would arrive. In 5 days, everyone cheered, but for Zalari. The news brought mixed feelings. What would happen when the High Command arrived and saw her living among the humans? Would they arrest her? Would they send her away? Daniel seemed to sense her worry. "We'll speak for you," he said. "The commander, the villagers, the kids, you've helped us all." "But will they listen?" she asked. "They should." Days later, as they worked on checking fuel cells, a scout drone returned with a warning. A second alien force was approaching, larger this time. Not a rescue, not a mission. An invasion group. They had learned Zalari was still alive and marked her as a traitor. And they had no plans of leaving survivors. The outpost prepared for battle. Everyone moved quickly. Weapons were checked, barriers raised, and safe rooms prepared for the settlers. Xlari stood beside the human commander. "We don't have enough soldiers to hold this base," the commander said. "But if we run, they'll destroy everything, including the village." Zalari nodded. "Then we don't run." Daniel stepped forward. "What if we delay them, by time, until Earth backup arrives?" "It's risky," the commander said, "but it may be our only chance." Zalari spoke up. "I know their formation patterns. If I lead the defense team, we can slow their landing, maybe even force a retreat." The room went silent. The commander looked at her. "You'd fight your own people again?" Zalari didn't hesitate. "They are not my people anymore. Not if they choose war over peace." Permission was given. She and Daniel were placed in charge of the hill defense line. That night, as they prepared, Zalari stared at her reflection in a metal panel. The scar on her side from the crash was still there. Her eyes were tired but steady. Daniel came in with 2 helmets. "You ready?" he asked. "As I'll ever be." "I have something," he said, reaching into his pocket. He pulled out a small charm-a-smooth, flat stone with a hand-carved symbol. "What is it?" she asked. "My brother made it before the war," Daniel said. "It's for protection." "Why give it to me?" He looked at her seriously. "Because if anyone's going to make it through this, it's you." She took it gently and placed it inside her armor. They climbed the hill together, watching the sky darken with incoming ships. The battle started just before sunrise. Alien dropcrafts filled the sky. Zalari gave quick orders, guiding human fighters. "Into position." Her voice was steady, her movements sharp. The enemy didn't expect resistance from their own kind. They hesitated, and that gave the humans an advantage. Explosions lit the horizon. Dust and fire filled the air. Daniel and Zalari moved as one, defending the west wall, protecting a medical tent, pulling injured soldiers to safety. They shouted orders, encouraged others, and kept fighting. Then near the center trench, an energy blast hit close. Daniel was thrown into a wall. "Daniel," Zalari shouted, running to him. His arm was hurt, bleeding. but he was awake. Go. He gritted. Don't stop. She grabbed his shoulder. Not without you. They pulled back to the ridge. The enemy was pushing harder now. More ships landed. Zalari raised her voice. Hold the line. Earth support is coming. Then from the sky, a roar. Earth ships appeared. Dozens of human crafts dropped through the clouds, firing on the enemy. The alien attackers, caught between two forces, began retreating. The battle ended by sunset. Xelari stood at the top of the hill, armor scorched, breathing heavy. Daniel was beside her, leaning on a support beam. They watched the enemy ships vanish over the mountains. We did it, he said. No, she corrected softly. We all did. And in her chest, she felt it again, that unfamiliar warmth. Not duty, not command, something stronger. The sun rose slowly over the damaged outpost. Smoke still hung in the air, but it was thinner now. The sky was calm, and the sound of gunfire had faded. What remained was silence. And human backup ships had landed during the night. Medics ran between the tents. Engineers began repairing broken walls. Supply teams brought fresh food, medicine, and gear. The base had survived. Exler stood on the edge of the field, watching the activity. Her armor was scratched and dark with soot, but her eyes were sharp. She saw humans working together, not just for their own people, but for everyone. For peace, Daniel approached her slowly. His arm was wrapped in a sling, and a cut across his cheek was still healing. They're calling you a hero, he said, stopping beside her. I'm not, she replied. Only did what I believed was right. Sometimes that's what makes someone a hero. She turned to him. What will happen to me now? He didn't answer right away. Earth command officers were arriving soon. They would want reports, names, records. They would ask questions about the alien warrior, who had once been their prisoner and who now stood among their soldiers. Our commander spoke with them already, Daniel said. She told them everything. Everything. Zeller asked, her voice calm but uncertain. Yes, Daniel said. She told them how you warned us, how you led the defense, how you chose peace. Zalari looked down. And what did they say? They want to meet you? To thank me? Maybe. Daniel said. Maybe to test you. I think they want to understand. That afternoon, Zalari entered the main command tent. Inside were 5 high-ranking officers. They asked her questions about the attack, about her people, about why she had stayed. She answered every question with honesty when they finished. The lead officer stood and said, You saved human lives. You stood beside our people when you didn't have to. You will not be punished. Instead, you are free to choose. Choose what? She asked. You can return to your world, he said, or you can stay. Zalari walked outside after the meeting. Daniel waited under a tree near the training field. She joined him quietly. What did they say? He asked. They gave me a choice. And she looked at him. I don't know what to do. Daniel nodded slowly. It's your life now. They sat in silence for a long while. Children ran past them, laughing. One of them waved at Zalari, and she waved back. A group of settlers nearby were planting new crops. Some of the seeds she had placed in the ground had already started to sprout. She turned to Daniel. What if I stay? His eyes met hers. Then you build something new, and if I leave, you carry our story with you. Maybe tell it to others. She smiled softly. Both paths seem heavy. All good paths are, Daniel replied. That night, a small gathering was held to honor those who fought and those who were lost. Everyone brought something: food, tools, photos of loved ones, or flowers. They lit soft lamps and placed them around the garden. Daniel stood with Zalari beneath the stars. Someone played soft music in the background, the same kind she had once listened to in her room. A young girl approached Zalari and handed her a small paper bird. It's for peace, the girl said. Xelari took the bird gently in her hands. Thank you. Daniel leaned close. You've made quite an impression. I never meant to, she replied. Maybe that's why it matters. As the night continued, people took turns sharing words, stories of courage, of hope, of those They missed when it was Zalari's turn. She hesitated. Then she stepped forward and spoke in a clear, calm voice. I was raised to fear humans, she said, to fight them, to believe they were heartless. But then, I met one who showed me something else. She looked at Daniel. He didn't hurt me. He didn't insult me. He gave me food and words and time. He listened. And through him, I saw your world not through glass or maps, but through kindness. The crowd was silent. War teaches us to see enemies, but peace teaches us to see people. She placed the small paper bird beside a glowing lamp. I choose peace, she said. The crowd clapped softly. Later that night, Daniel walked her back to her room. You've changed a lot, he said. So have you, she replied. If you stay, what will you do? I don't know yet, she said. Maybe teach others. Maybe help build. You'd be good at both, she looked at him. And if I stay close to you, he smiled, then I'd be lucky. For a moment, they simply stood there. Two people from different worlds, drawn together by war, changed by peace. Then Zalari spoke, her voice soft. I think I will stay. Really? Daniel asked. She nodded. Not because of duty, not because of orders. But because I finally feel like I belong. And in that quiet night, beneath the stars that once watched her fall, she rose not. As a soldier, not as a prisoner, but as someone new. Someone changed forever.